Welcome back to The Wonder Read Aloud by R.J. Palacio. Today we're going to be reading pages 217 to 234. We're in August's perspective, and page 216 is labeled Via's Secret. So a couple of days before spring break ended, Mom found out that Via hadn't told her about the school play that was happening at her high school the next week, and Mom was mad. Mom doesn't really get mad at that much, though Dad would disagree with that, but she was really mad at Via for that. She and Via get into a huge fight, and I could hear them yelling at each other in Via's room. My bionic lobot ears could hear Mom saying, "But what is with you lately, Via? You're moody and taciturn and secretive? What is so wrong with me not telling you about a stupid play?" Via practically screamed. "I don't even have a speaking part." "Your boyfriend does. Don't you want us to see him in it?" "No, actually I don't." "Stop screaming." "You scream first. Just leave me alone, okay? You've been really good about leaving me alone my whole life. So why you choose high school to suddenly be interested, I have no idea." Then I don't know what Mom answered because it all got very quiet, and even my bionic lobot ears couldn't pick up a signal. Page 217, My Cave. By dinner they seemed to have made up. Dad was working late, Daisy was sleeping. She'd thrown up a lot earlier in that day, and Mom made an appointment to take her to the vet the next morning. The three of us were sitting down and no one was talking. Finally I said, "So, are we going to see Justin in a play?" Via didn't answer, but looked down at her plate. "You know, Augie," said Mom quietly, "I hadn't realized what play it was, and it really isn't something you would be interesting to kids your age." "So I'm not invited?" I said, looking at Via. "I didn't say that," said Mom. "It's just I don't think it's something you enjoy." "You'd get totally bored," said Via, like she was accusing me of something. "Are you and Dad going?" I asked. "Dad'll go," said Mom. "I'll stay home with you." "What?" Via yelled at Mom. "Oh, great, so you're going to punish me for being honest about not going?" "You didn't want us to go in the first place, remember?" said Mom. "But now that you know, of course I want you to go," said Via. "Well, I've got to weigh everyone's feelings here, Via," said Mom. "What are you talking about?" I asked. "Nothing," they both snapped at me at the same time. "Just something about Via's school that has nothing to do with you," said Mom. "You're lying," I said. "Excuse me?" Even Via looked surprised. "I said you're lying," I shouted. "You're lying." I screamed at Via, getting up. "You're both liars. You're both lying to my face like I'm an idiot." "Sit down, Augie," said Mom, grabbing my arm. I pulled my arm away and pointed at Via. "You think I don't know what's going on? You just don't want me or your brand new fancy high school friends to know that your brother's a freak." "Augie," Mom said, "that's not true." "Stop lying to me, Mom," I yelled. "Stop treating me like I'm a baby. I'm not retarded. I know what's going on." I ran down the hallway to my room and I slammed the door behind me so hard that I could actually hear pieces of the wall crumble inside the door frame. I plopped onto my bed and pulled the covers up on top of me. I threw my pillows over my disgusting face and then piled all my stuffed animals on top of the pillows like I was inside a little cave. If I could walk around with a pillow on my face all the time, I definitely would. I don't even know how I got so mad. I wasn't really mad at the beginning of dinner. I wasn't even sad. But then all of a sudden it kind of exploded out of me. I knew Via didn't want me to go to her stupid play, and I knew why. I figured Mom would follow me into my room right away, but she didn't. I wanted her to find me inside my cave of stuffed animals, so I waited a little more. But even after 10 minutes, she still didn't come in after me. I was pretty surprised. She always checks on me when I'm in my room upset about stuff. I pictured Mom and Via talking about me in the kitchen. I figured Via was feeling really bad. I pictured Mom totally laying on the guilt, and Dad would be mad at her when he came home too. I made a little hole through a pile of pillows and stuffed animals and peeked at the clock on my wall. Half an hour had passed and Mom still hadn't come into my room. I tried to listen for the sounds in the other rooms. Were they still having dinner? What was going on? Finally, the door opened. It was Via. She didn't even bother coming over to my bed, and she didn't come in softly like I thought she would. She came in quickly. "Augie," said Via, "come quick. Mom needs to talk to you." "I'm not apologizing." "This isn't about you," she yelled. "Not everything is about you, Augie. Now hurry up. Daisy's sick. Mom's taking her to the emergency vet. Come say goodbye." I pushed the pillows off my face and looked up at her. That's when I saw she was crying. "What do you mean goodbye?" Come on, she said, holding out her hand. I took her hand and followed her down the hall to the kitchen. Daisy was lying down sideways on the floor with her legs straight out in front of her. She was panting a lot, like she was been running in a park. Mom was kneeling beside her, stroking the top of her head. What happened? I asked. She just started whimpering all of a sudden, said Via, kneeling down next to Mom. I looked down at Mom and she was crying too. I'm taking her to the animal hospital downtown. The taxi's coming to pick us up. The vet'll make her better, right? I asked. I hope so, honey, she said quietly, but honestly, I don't know. Of course he will, I said. Daisy's been sick a lot, Augie, and she's old. But they can fix her, I said, looking at Via to agree with me, but Via wouldn't even look up at me. Mom's lips were trembling. I think it might be time that we say goodbye to Daisy, Augie. I'm sorry. No, I said. We don't want her to suffer, Augie, she said. The phone rang. Via picked it up. Okay, thanks, and then she hung up. The taxi's outside, she said, wiping her tears with the backs of her hands. Okay, Augie, open the door for me, sweetie, said Mom. She picked up Daisy very gently like a baby. Please, no, Mommy, I cried, putting myself in front of the door. Honey, please, said Mom, she's heavy. What about Daddy, I asked. He's meeting me at the hospital, Mom said. He doesn't want Daisy to suffer, Augie. Via moved me away from the door and held it open for Mom. My cell phone's on if you need anything, Mom said to Via. Can you cover her with a blanket? Via nodded, but she was crying hysterically now. Say goodbye to Daisy, kids, Mom said, tears streaming down her face. I love you, Daisy, Via said, kissing Daisy on the nose. I love you so much. Bye, little girlie, I whispered. I love you. Mom carried Daisy down the stoop. The taxi driver had opened the back door, and we watched her get in. Just before she closed the door, Mom looked up as us standing at the entrance to the building, and she gave us a little wave. I don't think I've ever seen her look sadder. I love you, Mommy, said Via. I love you, Mommy. I'm sorry, Mommy, I said. Mom blew a kiss to us and closed the door. We watched the car leave, and then Via closed the door. She looked at me a second, and then she hugged me very, very tight, while we both cried a million tears. Justin came over about a half hour later. He gave me a big hug and said, sorry, Augie. We all sat down in the living room, not saying anything. For some reason, Via and I had taken all the Daisy toys from around the house and had put them in a little pile on the coffee table. Now we just stared at the pile. She's really the greatest dog in the world, said Via. I know, said Justin, rubbing Via's back. She just started whimpering all of a sudden, I said. Via nodded, like 2 seconds after you left the table. Mom was going to go after you, but Daisy started like whimpering. Like how? Just whimpering, I don't know. Like howling? Augie, like whimpering. She just started moaning like something was hurting her. She was panting like crazy. Then she just kind of plopped down and Mom went over and tried to pick her up. And whatever, but she was obviously hurting. She bit Mom. What? When Mom tried to touch her stomach, Daisy bit her hand. Daisy never bites anybody, I answered. She wasn't herself, said Justin. She was obviously in pain. Daddy was right, said Via. We shouldn't have let her get this bad. What do you mean? He knew she was sick? Augie, Mom's taken her to the vet like 3 times in the last 2 months. She's been throwing up left and right. Haven't you noticed? But I didn't know she was sick. Via didn't say anything, but she put her arm around my shoulders and pulled me closer to her. I started to cry. I'm sorry, Augie, she said softly. I'm really sorry about everything, okay? You forgive me? You know how much I love you, right? I nodded. Somehow that fight didn't matter much now. Was Mommy bleeding? I asked. It was just a nip, said Via, right there. And she pointed to the bottom of her thumb to show me exactly where Daisy had bitten Mom. Did it hurt her? Mommy's okay, Augie. She's fine. Mom and Dad came home 2 hours later. We knew the second they opened the door and Daisy wasn't with them, that Daisy was gone. We all sat down in the living room around the pile of Daisy's toys. Dad had told us what happened at the animal hospital, how the vet took Daisy for some x-rays and blood tests, then came back and told them she had a huge mass in her stomach. She was having trouble breathing. Mom and Dad didn't want her to suffer, so Daddy picked her up in his arms, like he always liked to do, with her legs straight in the air, and he and Mom kissed her goodbye over and over and over again, and whispered to her while the vet put a needle into her leg. And then about after a minute, she died in Daddy's arms. It was so peaceful, Daddy said. She wasn't in any pain at all, like she was just going to sleep. A couple times while he talked, Dad's voice got trembly and he cleared his throat. I've never seen Dad cry before, but I saw him cry tonight. I had gone into Mom and Dad's bedroom looking for Mom to put me to bed, but saw Dad sitting on the edge of the bed taking off his socks. His back was to the door, so he didn't know I was there. At first I thought he was laughing because his shoulders were shaking, But then he put his palms on his eyes, and I realized he was crying. It was the quietest crying I've ever heard, like a whisper. I was going to go over to him, but then I thought maybe he was whisper crying because he didn't want me or anyone else to hear him. So I walked out and went to Via's room, and I saw Mom lying next to Via on the bed, and Mom was whispering to Via, who was crying. So I went to my bed, and I put on my pajamas without anyone telling me to, and put the nightlight on and turned the light off, and crawled into the little mountain of stuffed animals I had left on my bed earlier. It felt like that all had happened a million years ago. I took my hearing aids off and put them on the night table, and pulled the covers up to my ears, and imagined Daisy snuggling with me, her big wet tongue licking my face all over like it was her favorite face in the world. And that's how I fell asleep. Heaven. I woke up later on, and it was still dark. I got out of bed and walked into Mom and Dad's bedroom. "Mommy," I whispered. It was completely dark, so I couldn't see her open her eyes. "Mommy?" "You okay, honey?" she said groggily. "Can I sleep with you?" Mom scooted over toward Daddy's side of the bed, and I snuggled up next to her. She kissed my hair. "Is your hand okay?" I said. "Via told me Daisy bit you." "It was only a nip," she whispered. "Mommy, I'm sorry about what I said," and I started crying. "Shh, there's nothing to be sorry about," she said, so quietly I could barely hear her. She was rubbing the side of her face against my face. "Is Via ashamed of me?" I said. "No, honey, no, she's not. She's just adjusting to a new school, and it's not easy." "I know. I know you know. I'm sorry I called you a liar. Go to sleep, sweet boy. I love you so much." "I love you so much too, Mommy." "Good night, honey," she said very softly. "Mommy, is Daisy with Grands now?" "I think so." "Are they in heaven?" "Yes." "Do people look the same when they get to heaven?" "I don't know. I don't think so." "Then how do people recognize each other?" "I don't know, sweetie." She sounded tired. "They just feel it. You don't need your eyes to love, right? You just feel it inside of you. That's how it is in heaven. It's just love, and no one forgets who they love." She kissed me again. "Now go to sleep, honey. It's late, and I'm so tired." But I couldn't go to sleep. Even after I knew she had fallen asleep, I could hear Daddy sleeping too, and I imagined I could hear Via sleeping down the hallway in her room. And I wondered if Daisy was sleeping in heaven right then. And if she was sleeping, was she dreaming about me? And I wondered how it would feel to be in heaven someday and not have my face matter anymore, just like it never ever mattered to Daisy. Understudy. Via brought home 3 tickets to her school play a few days after Daisy died. We never mentioned the fight we had over dinner again. On the night of the play, right before she and Justin were leaving to get to their school early, she gave me a big hug and told me she loved me and she was proud to be my sister. This was the first time in Via's new school. It was much bigger than her old school and 1,000 times bigger than my school. More hallways, more room for people. The only really bad thing was about my bionic Lobot hearing aids was the fact that I couldn't wear a baseball cap anymore. In situations like these, baseball caps come in really handy. Sometimes I wish I could still get away with wearing that old astronaut helmet I used to wear when I was little. Believe it or not, people would think seeing a kid in an astronaut helmet was a lot less weird than seeing my face. Anyway, I kept my head down as I walked right behind Mom through the long, bright hallways. We followed the crowd to the auditorium where students handed out programs at the front entrance. We found seats in the 5th row close to the middle. As soon as we sat down, Mom started looking inside her pocketbook. "I can't believe I forgot my glasses," she said. Dad shook his head. Mom was always forgetting her glasses, or her keys, or something or other. She's flaky that way. "You want to move closer?" said Dad. Mom squinted at the stage. "No, I can see okay." "Speak now or forever hold your peace," said Dad. "I'm fine," answered Mom. "Look, there's Justin," I said to Dad, pointing out Justin's picture in the program. "That's a nice picture of him," he answered, nodding. "How come there's no picture of Via?" I asked. "She's an understudy," said Mom. "But look, here's her name." "Why do they call her an understudy?" I asked. "Well, wow, look at Miranda's picture," said Mom to Dad. "I don't think I would have recognized her." "It's what they call someone who replaces." "Oh, why do they call it an understudy?" I repeated. "It's what they call someone who replaces an actor if he can't perform for some reason," answered Mom. "Did you hear Martin's getting remarried?" Dad said to Mom. "Are you kidding me?" Mom answered like she was surprised. "Who's Martin?" I asked. "Miranda's father," Mom answered, and then to Dad, "Who told you?" "I ran into Miranda's mother in the subway. She's not happy about it. He has a new baby on the way and everything." "Wow," Mom said, shaking her head. "What are you guys talking about?" I said. "Nothing," answered Dad. "But why do they call it an understudy?" I said. "I don't know, Augie Doggy," Dad answered. "Maybe because the actors kind of study under the main actors or something. I really don't know." I was going to say something else, but then the lights went out. The audience got very quiet very quickly. Daddy, can you please not call me Augie Doggy anymore? I whispered in Dad's ear. Dad smiled and nodded and gave me a thumbs up. The play started. The curtain opened. The stage was completely empty except for Justin, who was sitting in an old rickety chair tuning his fiddle. He was wearing an old-fashioned type of suit and straw hat. This play is called Our Town, he said to the audience. It was written by Thornton Wilder, produced and directed by Philip Davenport. The name of the town is Grover's Corners, New Hampshire. Just across the Massachusetts line, latitude 42 degrees, 40 minutes, longitude 70 degrees, 37 minutes. The first act shows a day in our town. The day is May 7th, 1901. The time is just before dawn. I knew right then and there that I was going to like this play. It wasn't like the other school plays I've been to, like The Wizard of Oz or Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. No, this was a grown-up scene, and I felt smart sitting there watching it. A little later in the play, a character named Mrs. Webb calls out for her daughter Emily. I knew from the program that was the part Miranda was playing, so I leaned forward to get a better look at her. "That's Miranda," Mom whispered to me, squinting at the stage when Emily walked out. "She looks so different." "It's not Miranda," I whispered. "It's Via." "Oh my God," said Mom, lurching forward in her seat. "Shh," said Dad. "It's Via," Mom whispered to him. "I know," whispered Dad, smiling. "Shh." The play was so amazing. I don't want to give it away, the ending, but it's kind of the ending that makes people in the audience teary. Mom totally lost it when Via, as Emily said, "Goodbye, goodbye, world. Goodbye, Grover's Corners. Mama and Papa. Goodbye to clocks ticking and Mama's sunflowers, and food and coffee, and new iron dresses and hot baths, and sleeping and waking up. Oh, Earth, you're too wonderful for anyone to realize you." Via was actually crying when she was saying this, like real tears. I could see them rolling down her cheeks. It was totally awesome. After the curtain closed, everyone in the audience started clapping. Then the actors came out one by one. Via and Justin were the last ones out. When they appeared, the whole audience rose to their feet. "Bravo!" I heard Dad yelling through his hands. "Why is everyone getting up?" I said. "It's a standing ovation," said Mom, getting up. So I got up and clapped and clapped. I clapped until my hands hurt. For a second, I imagined how cool it would be Via and Justin right then, having all these people standing up and cheering for them. I think there should be a rule that everyone in the world should get a standing ovation at least once in their lives. Finally, after I don't know how many minutes, the line of actors on stage stepped back and the curtain closed in front of them. The clapping stopped and the lights went out and the audience started to get up to leave. Me and Mom and Dad made our way to the backstage. Crowds of people were congratulating the performers, surrounding them, patting them on the back. We saw Via and Justin at the center of the crowd, smiling at everyone, laughing and talking. "Via!" shouted Dad, waving as he made his way through the crowd. When we got close enough, he hugged her and lifted her off the floor a little. "You were amazing, sweetheart." "Oh my God, Via!" Mom was screaming with excitement. "Oh my God, oh my God!" She was hugging Via so hard, I thought Via would suffocate, but Via was laughing. "You were brilliant," said Dad. "Brilliant," said Mom, kind of nodding and shaking her head at the same time. "And you, Justin," said Dad, shaking Justin's hand and giving him a hug at the same time. "You were fantastic." "Fantastic," Mom repeated. She was honestly so emotional she could barely talk. "What a shock to see you up there, Via," said Dad. "Mom didn't even recognize you at first," I said. "I did recognize you," said Mom, her hand over her mouth. "Miranda got sick right before the show started," said Via, all out of breath. "There wasn't even time to make an announcement. I have to say she looked kind of strange because she was wearing all this makeup, and I've never seen her like this before." "And you stepped right in there at the last minute," said Dad. "Wow!" "She was amazing, wasn't she?" said Justin, his arm around her. "There wasn't a dry eye in the house," said Dad. "Is Miranda okay?" I said, but no one heard me. At that moment, a man who I think was their teacher came over to Justin and Via, clapping his hands. "Bravo, bravo, Olivia and Justin!" He kissed Via on both cheeks. "I flubbed a couple of lines," said Via, shaking her head. "But you got through it," said the man, smiling from ear to ear. "Mr. Davenport, these are my parents," said Via. "You must be so proud of your girl," he said, shaking their hands with both of his hands. "We are." "And this is my little brother August," said Via. He looked like he was about to say something, but suddenly froze when he looked at me. "Mr. D," said Justin, pulling him by the arm. "Come meet my mom." Via was about to say something to me, but then someone else came over and started talking to her. And before I knew it, I was alone in a crowd. I mean, I knew where Mom and Dad were, but there were so many people all around us, and people kept bumping into me, spinning me around a bit, giving me that 1-2 look, which made me feel kind of bad. I don't know if it was because I was feeling hot or something, but I started getting dizzy. People's faces were blurring in my head, and their voices were so loud it was almost hurting my ears. I tried to turn the volume down on my Lobot ears, but I got confused and turned them louder at first, which kind of shocked me, and then I looked up and I didn't see Mom or Dad or Via anywhere. "Via!" I yelled out. I started pushing through the crowd to find Mom. "Mommy!" I really couldn't see anything but people's stomachs and ties all around me. "Mommy!" Someone suddenly picked me up from behind. "Look who's here," said a familiar voice, hugging me tight. I thought it was Via at first, but when I turned around, I was completely surprised. "Hey, Major Tom," she said. "Miranda," I answered, and I gave her the tightest hug I could ever give. And that's the end of today. See you next time.